This video is going to be a film study look at new Lions defensive end, edge defender DJ Wonnum, formerly of the Carolina Panthers, and prior to that, he had actually played in the NFC North with the Minnesota Vikings. I've got film from, I think, 3 different games here. I would not say that this is going to be the Lions pass rush answer opposite Aiden Hutchinson on those critical 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 situations. I'm going to give you my thoughts as the film kind of flows through here. Significant film from Carolina's 34-31 wild card loss to the Rams, where I thought DJ Wonnum played a spectacular first half. But in any case, here he is against Seattle, and I think this kind of illustrates the lack of elite burst that you get from him, at least from the film that we saw in Carolina last year. The tight end, A.J. Barner's going to release into the boundary side. This is week 17, I believe, against the Seahawks. And he does get credited with the sack here, don't get me wrong. But the left tackle, first of all, is a backup left tackle, Josh Jones. And he's getting out of there late. And so Wonnum isn't able to just bend all the way by here. I mean, credit Jones for doing a nice job and getting a piece of him and expanding him, pushing him upfield a little bit. I will say this, though. The force with which Wonnum plays, whether it's against the run or the pass, he looks like a guy that plays incredibly hard. I think he fits with the Lions' culture in that way. In an organic 4-man rush scheme, I wouldn't look for him to be a guy who gets a ton of organic wins, in less than 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 seconds. I'll give you the same play from the end zone angle. He'll generally be spot shadowed in yellow, and you get an idea of what I'm talking about. The tight end is free releasing into the boundary, kind of running a little bit of a slot fade-ish route into the boundary. But in any case, Wonnum getting upfield, really slow set, actually no set by the left tackle, Josh Jones. He's worried about or aware of this 3 technique, number 1, really slow out of his stance. Wonnum is able to get past him, but not enough such that he's able to bend directly to the quarterback and make this, a complete win. You can just see there's not elite athleticism there compared to, 8 or 10 guys that are in this draft as far as, rookies for 2026. Same game against the Seahawks, and some things that he does very well, if you ask me. Tries to stay square to the line of scrimmage to his aiming point, in this case the quarterback. It's a play-action boot concept. So Kenneth Walker III, who's obviously at this point moved on to the Chiefs, play action fake to his right, to the right-hand side of the offense, into the boundary. Here's Wonnum, like I said, spot shadowed in yellow. And then he'll deal with the tight end. That's one thing I noticed in the film. Primarily watched this game against the Seahawks, some against the Saints, and then the wild card loss, like I said, against the Rams. He's really good against tight ends. He can find extension, number 1, keep his visual key or his eyes, in this case on the quarterback, and still deal with the tight end. In this case, Saubert is holding on to him for a moment and then trying to release out into the route. What I really like here is the awareness to get up his, in this case, inside arm, left arm, as Sam Darnold is booting to the left-hand side of our screen, but the right for Wonnum. I think that Wonnum knows or realizes that it's Saubert that's probably the target. Now, that's actually not the case. And what I'm describing here is the tie-in, the delayed tight end route after a little tie-up of the defensive end. Normally, that guy sits inside of the edge defender. So, meaning sits inside of that leverage. That's not actually where Darnold is going with the football. He's not going here. He's trying to go there to the other tight end, which I believe is A.J. Barner. Wonnum gets his hand up. I've seen him have, in the film that I have, I've seen him have 3 PDs of this nature, and you'll see 2 other ones here. 4 PDs of this nature, excuse me. You'll see 2 other ones somewhat similar to this during the rest of this film study video. I think there's a whole lot more better athletes in this draft. I think the Lions are going to take one. This doesn't preclude Brad Holmes from doing so either at 17 or 50. I think it's pretty obvious, the fit is probably 50 at this point. I think it actually kind of ensures or gives us a hint that that's what they're going to do. And Wonnum is a guy who could be a placeholder, if you will, or someone to play on first downs when maybe they get a DPR, designated pass rusher, to rush the passer on 2nd and 3rd. In terms of his pass rush style, I can neither describe him as a speed rusher nor a power rusher. When he does try to utilize a bull rush, it's like he can't sustain it. He can get some movement, some push, but most of these starting caliber offensive tackles that I've seen in the reps, and I'll give you one of them against the Rams, they're able to anchor down at some point. That was his best game by far. In any case, this defensive tackle is going to disrupt. Actually, he's going to totally spin the right guard around and kind of really disrupt the pocket. It's a four-man rush. Wonnum spot shadowed here, and he'll get the sack eventually. Very strong, if you ask me, with his initial push. Doesn't seem to be a guy who can collapse the pocket. I would say he's more like a grinder as a pass rush guy, in my opinion, and that's where, I have to trust Brad Holmes and those guys, that they're not looking for DJ Wonnum to be a 50, 55, 58, 60 snap per game guy, especially in pass rush situations. I think, if you do see him on the field in pass rush situations, he'll be possibly kicked inside into that role that, they initially envisioned, I think, for Marcus Davenport, and then eventually settled on using Al-Quadin Muhammad. One point that was made on Twitter that I saw was interesting, and that's that Wonnum was not playing in Carolina opposite of a great pass rusher like an Aiden Hutchinson. Nonetheless, I don't think that he looks like an 8 to 10 sack guy per season. An 8 to 10 sack per season guy. Although it should be said, twice in Minnesota, he did produce 8 sacks each. Here, the tackle is getting, I think, a little bit more of a slower set, in my opinion, and so Wonnum is trying to take advantage of it. You can see that the tackle is kind of raising his inside arm up, some awareness of that 3 technique, and that kind of opens the gate or opens the edge for Wonnum, who unfortunately for Wonnum, he's stutter stepping for a moment. Instead of taking an immediate outside rush path, if you knew that the tackle was going to be this slow getting into his set, meaning it's not a super vertical version of a pass set, then you're going to try to get to the edge as quick as possible. In any case, he is able to power through, finish this off. You get some D-tackle pressure, total annihilation of the right guard. I do like the signing, I'll be honest with you, but I think that it really opens us up as fans to recognize they may be looking for a DPR type edge defender, a designated pass rusher. And it could be someone at 50. I think a trade back option would look really appealing to me as far as, getting back to maybe in the 20s, late 20s or something like that, recouping another pick, maybe early 40s somewhere to get that player who you think is a designated pass rusher, or someone who's more green overall, like a Malachi Lawrence, a Deny Dennis Sutton, or even a Derek Moore from Michigan. Part of the film that really surprised me, to be honest with you, is how agile, smart he is out in space. So dealing with leverage and understanding his positioning and where the help is. So this is a play-action concept against the Saints. There's no routes to his side. And he'll recognize that. He's going to drop out in coverage, basically. So it ends up being a 5-man rush, what I would call a zone blitz. Zone blitz normally is 3 deep, 3 under. The math, it doesn't look great there because you have 2 and then a third defender, Wonnum, as your 3 under, and then your 3 deep. Everyone is not the same depth nor the same width from the sideline, but they got different routes or different threats to their side. In any case, quarterback is initially looking, I think, here to Taysom Hill. I feel like Wonnum does a nice job in a lot of these situations looking for work. And you'll see briefly his helmet look at the quarterback and then bounce or ping pong to find some work. You can see him now definitely identifying something to the other side of the field. The helmet moves. So just has a surprising level of awareness. I'm not saying that footwork is great, nor the pad level. At times I think the pad level, even against the run or the pass, could be lower. I like this part, which is he ends up being kind of an airplane a little bit with his arms, but he's making sure that he doesn't miss the tackle to the outside. Quarterback with a little fake. What he doesn't want to do is jump to the inside and let the quarterback escape out here where there is no help. Again, it's a zone blitz, 5-man rush, 3 deep, 3 under. He is the defender closest to the sideline, which for us is the bottom of our screen. So he cannot miss the tackle to the outside. Basically, he has to force everything inside where his help is, and he does so. I think it surprised me the first time I saw this, and I thought it might be somewhat anomalous. And then this goes down as a sack, by the way. And then against the Rams, he showed, I thought, really good awareness and body control out in space when asked to drop out in coverage. This is an example of what I'm talking about, and we'll have 3 iterations. The one I just showed you, this play, and one a little bit later that I think will be late second quarter against the Rams, where he drops out in coverage, demonstrates awareness, and then actually gets involved in a tackle. He's active and hostile in these situations. I think he's obviously better against the run. than as a pass rusher. So it's a 12 personnel group, one tight end to the left, one tight end to the right. And I think he's making a strength call for the other OLB because the running back is set up to his side. So there's, 3 receivers to his side. My guess is that's to declare where the blitz is going to come from. It's a weak side inside linebacker blitz. Both OLBs, the one to the bottom of our screen and then Wonnum at the top, are going to drop out. Carolina's creating a 4-man rush, and it will be a completed pass on this route here to Puka Nacua. He covers up the tight end pretty well, if you ask me initially. Coming out of the left-hand side of the offense. Keeps his eyes on the tight end for the most part. Does sneak one peek back at the quarterback right about now. Looking back at the quarterback for a moment. And Stafford has plenty of time, a 4-man rush. Is able to work the ball back into Nacua. I think Nakua's route is supposed to be somewhere between the top of the numbers and the right hash. Essentially, kind of like a deep comeback or deep curl, if you will. There's a safety that sits down here, and since Stafford has plenty of time, Nacua works into the open space. We're talking about DJ Wonnum, again, who was covering that tight end out into the flats, to the field, to the wide side. He's the guy who actually gets here and makes first or maybe second contact. I think it's Mooring who is the safety that's involved or dealing with it there. My point is, he surprised me the first time I saw this. This was the second one, and then you'll see an even better version of it on a 4th down play late in the second quarter. More versatility than I expected, but I guess since he played in Minnesota with some of the crazy stuff that they've done over the years, we shouldn't be surprised. Pass rush against the right tackle. He does have Puka Nacua to his side, the wide receiver set up into the boundary. It's the biggest tell or sign as to what the offense is going to do. It's a pass play, obviously. It annoys me to no end that defenses in the NFL are showing very little, if any, awareness as far as reading this guy's release and possibly chipping him, making him expand that route to help out the safety or the inside linebacker who might be set up to that side. Stafford is initially looking away, which is, just a deke. It's obfuscation. He's certainly not looking to throw the ball anywhere over here, in my opinion. Everything is designed to come back to this route. That's why these teams, the Seahawks do it, the Lions as well, with Amon-Ra St. Brown. In any case, it's a bull rush from Wonnum against the right tackle. Initially gets some movement, and then it just is not able to get into, maybe we'll say 4th or 5th gear. He's got 1st and 2nd gear as far as the bull rush goes covered, no longer able to get any push after, no longer able to sustain the push. It wouldn't have mattered anyway, I think, because Stafford knew where he was going with the football, and Nacua was obviously wide open. My point is trying to display what DJ Wonnum can and can't do. It's super annoying to me that NFL defenses are extremely unprepared for player location, especially against quarterbacks like Matt Stafford, who are really personnel or matchup based. As far as how Wonnum fits go, I think I've made my thoughts clear. They're going to draft another one. Prior to this acquisition, I actually thought Brad Holmes in Detroit might be looking at taking 2 edge defenders with 2 4th-round picks, I believe, 2 5th-round picks and 2 6th-round picks. The depth of edge defender does extend pretty far. I look at some of the guys that could be available in a late 3rd round, 4th round situation. I know that Detroit doesn't have any 3rd round picks. Max Llewellyn, Romello Height, as guys who have some pass rush juice already, but certainly are not as good against the run. Packaging those guys with an edge defender chosen at 50 really makes sense to me. Another one that illustrates kind of a lack of awareness at times as far as personnel and the matchup you've got. Wonnum is over here. You'll see him show up in a little bit. Carolina's blitzing the inside linebacker to the side of Puka Nacua, who's in the slot. And then this inside linebacker is expected to get all the way over to the other side. Stafford's a matchup-based quarterback. He's looking for his guys. That's why, Cooper Kupp had 179 targets or whatever it was, maybe 193 one year. Puka Nacua gets a ton. The camera work isn't great here. By the way, Carolina's not just blitzing the inside linebacker. They're actually blitzing the safety off the same side where they have Puka Nacua. But in any case, Wonnum dropping out from the other side, you can see he's tracking exactly where Stafford is looking and where Stafford ends up throwing the football. And he's the guy who gets there to help make first contact and try to bring him down. I know that Detroit has, Derek Barnes, who played a lot as an edge defender into the boundary, sometimes dropping out to cover up in the pass. We would presume that he's going to take over at will linebacker. I know that they also re-signed Malcolm Rodriguez. To me, DJ Wonnum, if he's going to be on the field a lot, it's going to be on first and second downs where occasionally he'll be asked to drop out in coverage. A couple of more snaps here to just illustrate what he can do. All of this is from the Rams game. Again, he's spot shadowed in yellow. This is a 1st and 10 on the second possession. It's a split zone concept. It's a little bit unusual in that normally the tight end who's emanating from, in this case, the right-hand side of the offense, the running back is going to flow to that side typically and then sometimes cut it back underneath of that kick-out block. This is somewhat unusual in that Kyren Williams' initial steps are to the same side that the tight end is flowing to, in this case trying to kick out DJ Wonnum. Wonnum goes underneath of this, so he actually tries to dig this out. The blocking scheme is a little different as far as a split zone concept. I would say this has more of a little bit of a duo flavor to it. I wouldn't call it a duo concept, however. But in any case, Wonnum gets underneath of this. He actually doesn't get credited for the tackle. The reason why I included this one is his ability to make contact with tight ends and then hold his ground and then eye where the running back is. In this case, it's Kyren Williams. Get his eyes to the outside and be able to fit or match wherever Kyren Williams goes. In this case, you can see there's Wonnum's helmet on the inside with Kyren Williams. I think he does a great job against tight ends in the run game. Plays with tremendous force there. If you ask me, I'll give you this last play. I guess actually two, this one and one more to kind of illustrate it. Still from that same possession, actually the very next play. That was a 6-yard gain. This is a 2nd and 4. I'll give you two angle views of it, the all-22 and the end zone angle. How does he compare to Davenport and Muhammad? I don't think he has the pass rush juice of a Muhammad, number one. Number two, maybe a little bit of a hybrid of both of them in that he plays physical against the run, very big and strong. I think he's 6'5", pretty long arms. Tight end stepping to him here. I'm going to rewind this a handful of times so you can see him really lock out and extend on this tight end. The initial shock with his hands doesn't, quote, win, right? You can see those guys are almost chest to chest for a moment. And then once he sees that the running back declares, he extends, and then he's able to shed. You don't see him, but he's in between here, in between that offensive lineman and the tight end. I think he is credited with part of the tackle here. I'll give you the end zone angle. I think the late extension is what caught my attention, or it's what initially got me to look at this play multiple times. Same play from the end zone angle, and he's going to deal with this tight end stepping to him. Kyren Williams, direct flow to his side. They actually did get a stop on this possession. Like I said, it's the second possession. The extension here is what I noticed. Again, this is last year's film, the last game that Carolina played. So what are you getting in Detroit? You're getting a guy who's big, rugged, physical, and strong against the run. Not super player as a pass rush guy. I think you're going to have to look in the draft and the interior defensive tackles that are already on the roster to try to get some of that done. Tyleik Williams, Aleem McNeil, etc. The last play that I'm going to show you, let's skip this one and do one more that I think illustrates his surprising level of agility and awareness when he's dropping out. This is a 4th and 3, late second quarter. I think like 1:35 left. Unless I have my information wrong, the Rams are up 17-7. This just seems silly to me. Like, why? What about this is a sound decision that you could support? Why not take the field goal? You've scored 20 points through 28, 29 minutes of gameplay. Of course, you're going to continue to score points. They actually get the stop here. It's Wonnum who gets the PD. So notice where Stafford looks first, okay? Post-snap, number one. Number two, Wonnum is dropping out, and he's kind of dropping out on this route by the tight end, but really where I think Stafford wants to go is Nacua on this kind of later in cut. And because Wonnum is in that window, in that area, dropping out, remember what they did on the other completion to Nacua, right? They brought an inside linebacker, brought a safety, and Nacua just kind of settled down in this area, quick completion. And recall, Wonnum had dropped out from this side, and I pointed out that he was the guy to make first contact from all the way over on the other side of the field. In any case, Stafford is clearly looking there. Wonnum dropping out in that window has to play a role in the reason why he doesn't throw this to Nacua. And Stafford has to scramble, and that's a PD for Wonnum, a third one that I think shows up in this film study, unless I actually skipped the second one. My apologies for that. I'm going to give you the end zone angle for this one. Stafford could probably put this ball in a better place, my opinion. Like I said, it's a 4th and 3, Wonnum spot shadowed here. You've got Nakua and the tight end. The tight end's going to, run a little bit deeper route. Once Nakua goes off screen, we'll do this in purple, he's going to go, underneath like this. I think it's the presence of Wonnum dropping out of there. Maybe surprised Matt Stafford enough that he doesn't trigger this ball to Nakua on this route here. He's off screen to our right. So Stafford is, kind of getting some pressure. I think it's the safety on a blitz. And then Wonnum one more time here, all the way from the other side of the field, is going to go and get this PD. I think Stafford is probably trying to throw this football away from, these two defenders. He's trying to be as no-look-ish as possible instead of making, the simple throw on a 4th and 3. So Wonnum does a nice job of hustling, able to get his hands on the ball that's obviously wayward or off track from Stafford. If he's looking where he's throwing the football, it's certainly possible that he gets this throw on this side in this lane to the tight end, and Wonnum is not able to get there. I think you guys have got an active, hostile defensive end who plays a pretty good brand of football. He's not Muhammad against the pass. He's maybe not as physical and overwhelming as Davenport used to be 3, 4, 5 years ago, if and when he was healthy. I like the player. He seems sturdy. He seems reliable. And someone who's on the field a lot for Carolina. My guess is the Lions are going to draft at least 1, if not 2, edge defenders in this upcoming NFL draft, and those guys are going to split time with Wonnum, especially early in the season, and then maybe the ratio of who's on the field versus off changes as the season progresses.